I got some stick for laying into Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton was actually an angel compared to Isabella Blow. This was my worst ever shoot.
Very dramatic. So it was in 2002 for The Observer.
Yeah, the writer was called Tamsin Blanchard, and it was set up the week before. So, I had a few days to think about it, and my instincts were kind of right on the money because I knew it could be tricky.
How did you know?
Isabella Blow clearly had very low self-esteem, and she was this kind of vampiric figure, a kind of stylist. She didn't create anything. She basically curated people around her that she recognized their talent, like Alexander McQueen or Philip Tracy, who I actually photographed as well, the hat designer. And she kind of created this coterie of people that she recognized as talented, and she kind of lived on their talent, I think.
So what was she known for? I don't actually know who she is.
She was just a stylist. She was this posh...
So she'd use other people's designs
Absolutely.
to create outfits.
Yeah. She was this sort of posh, maybe aristocratic. She had this sort of aristocratic bearing that kind of her shtick, her kind of the carapace, her image was this sort of very, very posh lady. And she was married to this woman called Dieter. And they were kind of like one of these unusual idiosyncratic characters that you have in fashion that are kind of instantly recognizable. She had a brand. It was very sort of gothic, but she would kind of be, as I said, a vampiric figure that would kind of feed off the talent of others, I think. I'm really doing her down. But yeah. I mean, I just thought she's not going to really get me or like me. And when I arrived on Monday morning after the weekend of thinking about the shoot, it was worse than I could have imagined. So we were waiting outside her house. We knocked on the door, and before we could even be let in, she kind of had to establish my credentials, and she immediately started saying she wasn't interested in doing the shoot.
Well, after seeing your credentials, like portfolio?
No, I mean, I basically had the shoot in the diary. It was for The Observer. We were all systems go. We knocked on the door, and she just took one look at me, and she thought, I don't like the look of him.
Good enough fashion sense.
Yeah, and unbeknown to me, she had this other guy, a photographer, who was staying in her house, who she'd had a previous, I don't know what the relationship was, but it was very, very suspect. They clearly had a connection, and I think she wanted him to do the shoot.
Right.
But when she introduced me to him, and his name was Donald McPherson, she said that he was her publicist. So it was like, what? Who is this guy?
And you hadn't heard of him?
I'd never heard of him.
He's not big in the photography world.
No, I mean, but I mean, it takes all sorts. I mean, he I've subsequently looked at his pictures, and, he's definitely, back then, he was definitely a professional photographer. But they had a rapport, and he was kind of, I think, doing an Isabella Blow and dining out on the fact that he knew her, because I just looked at his Wikipedia, which he clearly must have written himself, and he makes great play of their
dig there.
Yeah, I mean, he makes great play of the fact that he has a relationship and a connection with Isabella Blow. And what happened was, we're standing there, it's really awkward. She's saying she doesn't really want to do it.
You haven't been let in the house yet. It's
no,
at the door.
No. I mean, it was very strange. And in order, normally my kind of modus operandi, that my kind of ace in the hole is my little portfolio. Before the iPhone was invented, I had this little analog book of my portraits, and I thought, okay, well, I'll play this game. And I showed her my portfolio, and in the portfolio there's Demi Moore, Martin Scorsese,
massive figures at
big
the time.
Names, yeah, much more famous than her. And
another shy dig.
Yeah, well, it's true. And reluctantly, she let me in the house. But she made it clear that I was going to have to take my instructions from her publicist. I didn't know he was a photographer at this point.
Photographer.
Yeah, I thought he was her publicist. So I just thought, okay, I'll play along. So we basically had hours of her getting ready. And during that time,
Was it a fashion shoot? So it was
Yeah, it was kind of like just a portrait
just a portrait
for the
shoot.
magazine. Yeah,
They didn't give. They didn't care what clothes she was wearing. It wasn't needed.
I mean,
Wasn't
she
for
cared.
advertisement.
Yeah, I mean, she put a great deal of thought into it. She was clearly very keen on the publicity that she was going to get.
Yeah.
I don't know what she was promoting at the time, but we sat in the kitchen and I listened to her talking with this guy, and it was just, I was getting more and more irritated. He was disgusting. I mean, he really was. He had sort of tracksuit bottoms that didn't go, that sort of finished halfway down his calves,
Like
so they were really
3/4
short.
length.
He wasn't wearing any pants
How did you know?
because his bits were sort of jiggling around, and you could sort of see the silhouette of them. I mean, it was just absolutely disgusting. He's the same age as me. He was like in his 30s, as I was back then. And I just thought, oh my God, who is this guy? And he had a sort of khaki wife beater on top. So he
Okay.
had these tracksuit bottoms, no pants,
It's like vest.
and a vest with
Yeah.
his sort of puny kind of fashion photographer arms. So it wasn't. Let's just say he wasn't Andrew Tate.
No, don't.
Okay, we won't mention Andrew Tate. We're not
Starting
fans
it.
of Andrew Tate.
Let's just say he wasn't. Think of someone else.
Let's just say he wasn't Mr. T from the A Team. That's a sort of
that's a dated reference.
that's a very dated reference. So, and the worst thing was he was being encouraged to talk about some party they'd been to.
What by Isabella?
By Isabella, and they were kind of really relishing discussing this party and the fact that he'd been kind of having sex with some teenage model or whatever, and he was like my age. It was kind of really not appropriate, and I just thought, at the time, I've got a daughter. I was just thinking, I wouldn't let my daughter anywhere near this creep. And it just was one drip, drip, drip. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. It was one little moment of humiliation after another.
Yeah.
Because what happened was I went around her house. It was like a terraced house in those streets around SE1, near the river, sort of very central, near Waterloo.
They like Victorian house.
Really, really cool area. It might have been Georgian, but one of those Georgian terraces, very small, but kind of quite big inside. And I went round.
High ceilings and.
Not that high, but
Oh.
kind of probably would have been a workman's cottage or something like that. But only rich people would live there now because it was so central.
Mm.
And I went round the entirety of the house trying to find cool places to photograph her. And then I'd go to her publicist and he would just go, no. And I'd be like, okay.
Did he suggest any places?
No, he just basically vetoed. He was just trying to ruin my shoot, basically. And so
you must have given a bad energy towards him.
I was getting more. I was getting more and more angry.
I know what you're like as well. I feel like
I probably
it'd be very obvious.
We weren't offered any food as well, and I'm not good. I get hangry. I mean, I played a part in this.
Yeah.
I probably did, but basically, it culminated. It culminated in this extraordinary kind of scene where I went upstairs to the bedroom, and he was clearly staying in the house, and I think his assistant was sitting on the bed, and she was rolling a joint, like a massive spliff. And he'd vetoed the latest idea of where I wanted to shoot.
You hadn't taken any pictures at
I hadn't taken any pictures, getting more and more stressed. And because he'd vetoed the latest thing, I said, so, are you a photographer? I just sort of had an inkling that, he seemed to speak with such authority. And he looked at his assistant rolling the joint, and he said, they sort of smirked in a sort of knowing way, as if to say, who is this schmuck? And he went, you could say that.
So arsehole.
And then he said to me, and I still can't believe he said this. He said, you know that book of your portraits that you showed Izzy?
Mm.
And I went, yeah. I was expecting to say, you got some nice images there. And he said, I photographed all those people. It was like Alan Partridge or something. He said, I photographed all those people, but for me, they're not subjects. And he paused for effect, and then he said, they're my friends. I mean, it was just extraordinary.
So embarrassing.
It was so embarrassing. He's sitting there in no pants on his stupid fucking It was awful. It was really awful. And then eventually, I just went into the bathroom, and there was a white wall in the bathroom, and I just used a ring flash. And I mean, it's very graphic, and it worked really well. And I used my Hasselblad with a ring flash, and I may have used the Fuji's rangefinder and shot over the ring flash. And it was kind of interesting because he uses a lot of ring flash, so he was forcing me to do what he does. And eventually, I did the shoot with the ring flash. I got what I wanted, but I realized I'd been utterly humiliated, utterly castrated, emasculated, photographically castrated. It, I know I can't say
Relax.
that. It was just it was a horrible day, and I can feel it now. I was probably really hungry
Mm.
and getting more and more angry.
So did he see the pictures, or
No. I mean,
did you get any reaction
I
from him?
did
What's
show
he
him a
take?
Polaroid in order to get him to agree to something, and
Mm.
we did the pictures in the bathroom. And eventually, it was time to leave, and I loaded. Me and Jesse, my assistant, we loaded up the car, and we were just like looking at each other as if to say, what the hell was that? That's just so weird. And I got in the car, and I gave the journalist, Tamsin Blanchard, a lift back to Hackney. So she was in the car as well. And I just thought, I've really let myself down. I've been, you know, completely acquiescent, pathetic. I knocked on the door, and I said I went
So you
back in.
hadn't left yet.
We loaded up the car. We were about to leave. So I knocked on the door, and I said, can I just use your loo
This is where
before we head back?
this is one of your character flaws here.
Yeah.
Revenge and
Well, I mean, this is a revenge.
malice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not proud of this, and
This is where you lost your
I lost the moral high ground.
for sure.
So I went into the toilet where the bathroom where I'd been photographing, and there was a toilet there, and I got all the toothbrushes,
All of them.
all of them. They're in the big. I just put them down the loo, clean the U-bend with them. Got my hand wet doing it, and then put them back, wash my hands, and then I was out.
That is awful.
I mean, the interesting thing about it,
And you're happy to share this with our 35,000
well, she can't.
subscribers.
It doesn't reflect well on me, but I think it's important that we expose the unvarnished truth.
Yeah.
But which is interesting because the journalist, if it had been Lynn
Barber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The journalist, on our drive back to Hackney, I told her what I'd just done, and I said, you can put that in the piece. I said, she's a total wanker. I can't stand that photographer. I told her the whole thing about the photographer upstairs and everything. I mean, it would have made a much more interesting piece. But Isabella Blow had such currency, had such a reputation in the fashion industry, and this is why I don't like the fashion industry, because it's all
picky.
It's also all kind of a monoculture. So they talk about wearing all this kind of amazing gear, but everyone dresses in black. Everyone's anorexic. I'm making these generalizations. Yeah, maybe it's different now.
What do they used to call it? Maybe it's heroin chic.
Heroin chic. That was in the 90s. Yeah, that was the
90s.
decade before. But basically, I told Tamsin, write an interesting article. You can use me, and I don't care. And she didn't. The article came out, and it was just really anodyne and really kind of boring, I think.
Yeah.
But then I can understand from
if
her.
Lynn was to do that, Lynn would have gone.
I'm sure Lynn would have got into the nitty gritty of the reality of what happened. But it did kind of make a funny story, and she was an extraordinary looking woman, so I did get some good pictures.
Yeah. And what about the photographer? What's he up to now?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because we were doing this. I sort of had a look, and let's just say his website is under construction.
That's also toxic. Toxic way to end.
I don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what I saw on the internet when I looked.
The pleasure of your voice, the pleasure of your mannerisms. Then when you're saying it,
it's a very kind of
satisfying.
There's a subtext, isn't it? Website under construction.
Risky video, I feel like, but
I think it's important we put it out there.
Yeah, I don't want to censor you.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really me punching down. I mean, the guy, he's worked for Vanity Fair. He's looking, reading between the lines, looking at his Instagram. He's clearly in sort of retirement
Mm.
because of the huge success that he'd had during his professional career with all his friends.
So
So
yeah, look at you.
good luck to him.
All right, cool. Thanks for watching.
Pleasure.